Yeah. So again, this is just going to be based on best practices, that I've worked on, and based on different projects that I've, done for different people in the time past that are still using till now. And this is actually production-based architecture itself. So today, so Sheon started the Azure class last week, where he touched on, different parts of Azure identity, RBAC, things around access, security, and what have you. So tonight we'll be taking it up a little further up the ladder, right? So please, the things that we're going to be sharing today, right, are just basics and best practices. In that, once you get the basics, you'll be able to work with, the different resources that you have on Azure. Azure is very wide. You can't finish learning Azure in a year, even in 2 years. Like it's too wide. Do you understand? So we can't really finish everything in this class. But just like I've said, right, just based on, the things I feel you should know, instead of us jumping into different complexities, on cloud and all. But once you're able to get yourself familiarized, with these basic concepts, I believe you go a long way. So Azure is very wide, right? And we'll just be working on, some of these areas, best practices and all. So as a DevOps practitioner, right, it's your responsibility for you to know the basic cloud concepts. Again, be it Azure or AWS, you understand? But, so many people want to tend towards AWS because that's where the market is. Well, fine and good, but the most important thing is that you must be able to understand what it is that you are doing on cloud. And the same, the same concept applies everywhere. Once you're able to get that concept, then you'll be good to go. So today, we're going to be working. We might not finish this topology that you have on the screen, but this is just like the basic architecture that you find everywhere, just basic, architecture. So we might not be able to finish this, right? But we'll start, and this where we'll stop. I'm sure you'll be able to, continue from there. So this is a basic topology. Let's call this topology, or let us call this company, let's say DaaS company, right? So DaaS they want to actually transition into the cloud, right? And DaaS company, they are actually a startup, and as a startup, just something like a company like Flutterwave, Paystack, a big app and what have you. So just within the DaaS financial payment system, right? They want to be able to, they've designed all the applications, they have different applications, different APIs, different OTP servers, that are going to be dishing out OTPs. They have different stateful subnets and what have you, right? So as a DevOps practitioner or as an engineer with DevOps mindset, right? They've now come out to you that, okay, please, how are we going to segment our network? You don't go to the cloud and start creating VM. Okay, I've created VM. This is the IP. This is the public IP address. Give me the port that this guy wants to connect to. You must have to sit down and plan accordingly. Once you're able to plan your network accordingly, I can tell you categorically that you would have, resolved 70% of, the entire exercise that you need to do in the cloud. Yes, I can say that with my full chest. 70% of anything that you need to do, once you're able to get your architecture well. Architecture can be for months, it can be for maybe like a few months, just for you to be able to understand what it is that you want to do. So you've come up with this particular issue, right? They say that, yes, our applications are ready, our APIs are ready, the OTP stateless applications are ready, we have our DBs and all, everything is running within dev environment. Now I want to transition to the cloud. what do we do? Based on my own best practice, right? And based on a general high-level architecture, right? I will come up with this. I'll come up with two things, a DMZ and an internal LAN. Now, what is a DMZ? A DMZ is the military word for demilitarized zone, meaning this is a zone that is, how do I put it now? This is the zone that everybody can gain access to. This is like a public zone, you know. This is like a zone that is vulnerable. This is a zone that, you know, anybody can actually connect to. Just see this zone itself as a zone that is accessible on the public network itself, right? And the second zone is what I call the internal LAN, or in some organizations, you'll be hearing things like, these are the applications that sit behind the firewall. So what you have, again, just like I've said, this is just like a high-level architecture. What you have is a firewall between the DMZ and the internal LAN. Your network guys will always call that kind of firewall your internal firewall. Why they will have another firewall here called the external firewall, right? And this is just, you know, different levels of access, you know, security and what have you. So between the DMZ and the internal LAN, you'll have an internal firewall, just that you don't have, you know, unauthorized access to the internal LAN. Now, what is within this DMZ? This DMZ contains servers that third parties would call. For example, an organization like Flutterwave, right? They will have APIs that other businesses would call, maybe if they want to integrate for payment and all of that. Now, that service that they are calling is sitting within this DMZ. It's sitting with this DMZ. And that is why I painted it red, right? It's sitting with this DMZ. So if you are calling that API from the internet, you're calling one of these guys, right? There can be another server, or there can be another API, maybe name inquiry API. They are also calling to Flutterwave from the internet, right? You are calling that, you'll be calling one of these guys. That is why you can see these three arrows, you know, coming in, right? Now, what is within the internal LAN? Within this internal LAN, you have some other subnets, and you have some other applications that they do not necessarily need to be exposed to the internet, meaning calls from the internet. Hello, anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, meaning calls from the internet or response from the internet, right? Those responses do not need to get to your internet. That is why you have it segmented. This is just for the internal, you know, different activities that you want to be done internally. Right. Now, what do we now have within this architecture? Within the internal LAN, we have databases. You know, databases are called stateful resources. Now, these are resources that, you know, they write to a data store, you know, stored somewhere. So you have your databases, you have your Redis. You know, we've talked about Redis, right? In-memory database. All of these are called stateful subnets. Now, within banks, right, there's something they call CBA. CBA is core banking application. Now, you will not want to expose your core banking application to the internet. You always want it to be within your internal LAN, or you want it to sit, you know, behind the firewall. Do you understand? So all of these guys must have to be protected within the internal LAN. Now, they must not just be protected, they need to be within a particular subnet. Very important concept, like this thing I'm actually saying. They must have to be within their own subnets. They must have to be within their own subnet. This is another subnet, this is another subnet, you know, what have you. And what is a subnet? A subnet is just an isolation, you know, from from other subnets. For example, you would not want an interaction between the application subnet and the OTP subnets. Do you understand? You might not want that direct connectivity. What do? You lock them down within a particular subnet. Just see this guy as a prison, right? Just see this guy as a prison, right? This is another prison, locking down all of these resources so that you don't have direct access. Let's say, peradventure, there's an hacker, that got hold of this application subnets. Now, because there is no access, forget about this line, because there's no access between this particular subnet and this particular subnet. Of course, this is going to be protected because, number one, they are protected by the internal firewall, and number two, they are locked down within a particular subnet itself. Now, once you're able to grasp these concepts, then you are good to go. Meaning, you are trying as much as possible to lock down, to be able to sit down to segment all your resources. Once you segment them, then you would have finished basic, like the major work. You understand? Now we have API subnet, we have OTP subnet, stateful subnet, application subnet. This is the gateway subnet and what have you. Now, how do I come up with this particular IP address scheming? This is 10.10.0.0/24. Remember, during our network class, right? You want to try as much as possible to be able to, they've given you a particular subnet. There's a question. Okay, daas.ng, can we safely say that the DMZ contains the public subnets and the internal LAN contains the private subnet? Yes, correct. Fine. You're right. You can actually put it that way. Okay, so you've been given a VNet. Now, a VNet is virtual networking, and this is like the IP address scheming for your entire network, meaning all your network, as you have here, right? They must be within an addressable workspace. Now I'm using 10.0.0/24. What does this mean, right? Even if you are not very good with subnetting, right? The most important thing is just for you to be able to understand, the different IP address scheming. We are saying that if I should give my organization 10.0.0/28, what does it mean? Meaning all my resources, my databases, my application, they will all fall within this particular subnet. Now, what does this mean? Now, I have a tool that I usually use even here at work. It's called Visual Subnet Calculator, right? Now, this would help you with subnetting. Now, if I want to subnet this guy, because I've actually gone ahead to, create a different subnets. If I want to subnet and, I've been able to identify the different workloads that I have application subnet, I have API subnet. How do I know the address to give to this different subnets, right? I'll just go to Visual Subnet Calculator. I'll paste the IP address I want to use. It could be /16, right? And then just click on updates. Now, this is going to tell you that these subnets, right? With this subnet, it's telling you that once you use this subnet within DAS organization, you will have 65,000 hosts, meaning you will have, all your servers, your databases, your Redis, even if you want to start deploying your Docker containers, Azure Kubernetes services, all of them, right? They must have to fall within the 65,000 hosts. But then, will you want to use 60? Like, can you use 65,000 IP addresses? For me, I believe it's too much, right? So I can come down. Let's see 17. Let me update again and see 17. Yeah, 17 is still much. I have 32,000 because even within my my network, I don't think I can be able to use this. Meaning I will waste IP addresses, or do you understand? I will waste IP addresses. So let us take this to 24 and update. What do we have? we have 254 hosts, which is still okay, right? At least for a small organization like DAS, right? We can still work with 254. So I am good to go. It's telling me that I can only work with 254 hosts. So how do I now start, from this subnet address, which is like the umbrella for anything I want to do? I can click on divide. So meaning I am breaking this IP address into other smaller chunks so that different sources can use the subnet. So you can divide it as you like. Do you understand? So let me divide this 126, meaning within the subnet, right, I can provision 126 hosts. Let me go ahead to divide, right? I've divided that guy, meaning within this particular subnet and this subnet, I can provision 62 hosts. This 126, let me go ahead and divide. And let me divide this. So you can just keep dividing. Once you are good to go, right, and you are okay with the subnet address, then you can now start going ahead. You can now go ahead to be able to assign the different subnets that you want to assign. But mind you, because these are different networks. Remember, during our networking class, these are different networks. This guy that is here will not be able to communicate with this guy unless you do something called interVLAN routing. InterVLAN routing is just a route that will make a subnet to communicate with another subnet. Then on Azure, it's called VNet peering. We're going to take a look at it during the course of this class. So I am done. So what does this mean? It means my application subnets, I can give my application subnets this network address, right? Now, what does that mean? That means that all my applications within this particular application subnet, I can only give 28 hosts, because of course the first and the last are for network and broadcast. Right. So don't worry, just forget about what I just said. But then once you get on Azure, Azure will be able to tell you the usable host. So it means I can only use 30 IP addresses. Right. For the next one, which is application subnet 2, I can give you this subnet. Application API subnets, I can give it this last one. Right. OTP subnets, I can give it this like that. Then if you have more subnets, let's say you have front-end applications and you want to, give it a subnet, you can just divide, just go ahead to divide, just keep dividing. Do you understand? So you're able to get a minimum. But one advice I would give to you is that don't make your IP addressing scheme to be very tight. For example, you cannot create a subnet and just create 10.0.0.24/29, because this will only give you 4 hosts. Do you understand? So just try as much as possible to give room for your subnet. All right. So once that is done, we can go ahead to start creating our resources on Azure. So let's go to Azure. Now I'm sure that you Shion had done justice to how to be able to navigate your way around Azure. Azure is very wide, right? So let us try as much as possible to read more, right? There are different labs that we can always work on. Okay, so let's go ahead. Okay, on Azure, right? We have different services. Right, we have different services on Azure. Like there are a whole lot that I don't even think we'll be able to finish. Just like I've said, you continue to learn and learn and learn. But once you understand the basics, right, that understanding would guide you to using all of these different resources, different services. I beg your pardon, different services on Azure. We have identity, we have security. So these are services talking to These are services talking to compute, right? Compute. These are services talking to networking. We have a whole lot of them. These are services talking to storage, web, file containers, and what have you. Now, before I go on, right, let me just explain another concept for you. So sorry that I just had to kind of like take this so that we can have an understanding of Azure itself. Just a minute, let me mute my. Okay, now let me just bring up this so that we have here, right? I'll just take 2 minutes to explain, some of these common questions that they usually, like, there's no interview I attend that they will not ask this question, right? And these are just the different cloud computing services that you must know, right? We have infrastructure as a service, we have platform as a service. Yeah.
I think your screen is a bit slower than what you, when you talk about a particular slide, is as in what you are explaining is way ahead of your screen. Sometimes when you're talking about a particular thing, I'm seeing another screen. Will it be my network or
it's your network, bro? Your network is performing fine here.
Okay, all right, no problem. Let me go out.
Okay, all right. Lawrence, I think you may need to switch another network.
Okay.
Right, sorry about that. Okay, Akinfemi, please go ahead. Do you have a question? Your hand is raised. Hello, Akinfemi.
Sorry, please, it was a mistake.
Oh, okay, all right.
Hello, Dawson. I have a question. Let me ask mine now, before we go to the next session.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dawson. Thank you so much. I want to ask, on your format slide, you're talking about segments. You're segmenting the stateless, which is the database, the OTP, the API, and application. So your definition of segments, I'm look at my understanding. I just want to be clarified. So when you talk about segments, I think you're talking about security here. And when it comes to security, you're talking about firewalls and the sub network. Is that really what you meant about segmenting them so that it won't be reachable to the outside in case of hackers? So when you are saying this, you are talking about security, and this time you're talking about firewalls and that of sub network.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Just along the line, fine, now made it more clear that the other one is a public and the other one is a private. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So, and again, one of the mistakes that people make, in fact, I've actually made that mistake before, was that I just created different resources. I created different resources under a flat network. Do you understand? So my application subnet, my OTP, API subnets were all under one subnet. And then I was just creating resources and giving them IP addresses. Now, what that means is that if a hacker should get hold of a particular API service, then that is all. Because from that service, right, the hacker can, do reverse engineering to target a particular database. And once he gets hold of that particular database, what he just needs to do is just to create a user on that database, grants himself sysadmin role on the DB, and that is all. That is all. Do you understand? So that is why it's very, very essential to segment your network. And once you're able to do this, right, the hacker, it will be very, very difficult before a hacker will be able to get hold of your internal LAN. Very, very difficult, because there are different layers of security that you have in place. But if this is not the case in your organization, then, man, you need to revisit the architecture. So let's go ahead and talk about this. So now I said that this is the different cloud computing services that you must know. right? Talk about infrastructure as service, platform as service, and software as service, right? I'm sure that you are all familiar with this. So these are basic interview questions that they will always ask once you are, especially with this international organization. They just want to know if you have a basic understanding. So I believe if you don't have that understanding, please go ahead to be able to read more on infrastructure as service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Do you have any question before I go on? Does anybody have any question as regards this? Okay, all right. And some examples of infrastructure as service. Again, once you talk about infrastructure as service, what are you talking about? So instead of buying your hardware, right, what you just do is just to rent the IT infrastructure servers and virtual machines. You talk about storage, networks, operating system, right? You rent that space on the cloud. And what do you have access to? You have access to data, applications, runtime, operating system, and what's the virtual machine itself. You don't have access to networking, storage, and compute. Do you understand? All of this, once you have you actually manage the data and access application, runtime, operating system, and the virtual machine itself. Now, what this means is that it's not like you won't have your own networking segment, or you'll be able to create firewall rules and all. You'll be able to create that. But in terms of managing the firewall itself, right, that is not under your purview. Do you get? In terms of managing the storage itself, that is not under your purview. But you will still have access to storage, right? But in terms of managing all of this, managing is for the storage, you want to be able to run, you want to be able to run different maintenance tasks on the storage. No, you don't have access to it because your cloud will be able to do that for you, right? You only have access to your virtual machine, the operating system, runtime, application, and data access. Now, what about platform as a service? Platform as a service, you only have access to data and access and then applications. Now, developers or programmers, they will always want to use this type because they don't care. A typical developer today does not care about operating system, virtual machine. It's only just to deploy the application and you will move on. That's platform as a service. Then software as a service, right? Things around your Outlook email, your Microsoft Office 365 and all is what software as a service is. Right? So I hope you get that. Okay, so let us move on because we still have another hands-on. I just have to kind of like give you all of these details so that once you start doing the hands-on, you would understand. Another thing, one last thing that I would want to talk about again is sketch. Is Azure organization scope. Azure organization scope. Okay, so in Azure, right, we have different organization scope, right? Now, we have the management group, which is up over here. Over here, we have the management group. Then it goes down to subscriptions. Then it goes down to what I call source groups. I will just name this RG. Then lastly, to the actual resources. This is another common interview questions that they ask, that what are the different, what is it called? The different organization scopes, or they would ask you that what are the different resource manager hierarchy that you have on Azure? Very simple. First one I said is management group. Let me MG. Second one is subscriptions, or the sub. Third one is resource groups, and then the last one is resources itself. So let me start from bottom up, right? What are resources? Resources are just what you can see here. Okay, let me go to, you can see all resources, right? Now, these are resources, virtual machines, function app services. All of these guys are resources, right? These are just, the tools that we use on Azure to achieve a particular function. You understand? There are different resources that you have. That is just the simple definition of resources, as the name implies. Going up, next one is resource groups. Just as the name implies, resource group, meaning you are grouping your resources. So they are just what you call logical collections of all of those resources that I just showed you. Virtual machines, app services, storage accounts, virtual network, Azure SQL databases, and what have you. Now, another important function of the resource group is that it's very useful when it comes to RBAC. Sheon talked about RBAC last week. Now, RBAC is just role-based access control. Anything around access control to all of those resources, right? The resource group is going to help you. Remember, it's just a logical collections of the different machines, of the different resources that you have, virtual machines, storage accounts, web apps, and what have you. Now, going up, we have subscriptions. Now, subscription, again, is just a logical collection of Azure resources, or a logical collection of Azure resource groups that you have here. So remember, this is a collection of resources, while subscription is a collection of resource group, right? So an Azure subscription does not cost anything. They're just like a logical container, a logical grouping to be able to group all your resources. And remember that Sheom talked about the different, Azure subscription last week, where you talk about the CSP, pay as you go, enterprise, and all of those payment method is being handled here on this layer on your subscriptions. So if you want to maybe purchase a new subscription, right? Within the particular subscription model itself, they will ask you the kind of payment method you want. We have EA, which is enterprise agreement, pay as you go, free trial, and last one is the CSP. Now to the last one, which is the management group. So a management group, again, is just a logical container that allow administrators to manage, access, policy, compliance across the Azure subscription itself. So management group allows you to be able to manage subscriptions. So now, what does that mean? In your organization, this is your organization, right? Let's say this is the parent organization, and within the parent organization, there are different other companies, or we call them different opcos. Let's say, for example, that this is a holding company. This is the holding company. And within the holding company, for example, now, like UBA, for example, now UBA has different holding companies, right? Now, what they want to do is to, purchase a single license, a single Azure license, right? Now, once they do that, they can now create different subscriptions. This is maybe subscription for the investment arm of UBA, and that subscription for maybe the banking arm of UBA, and that subscription for, let's say, the hospitality section of UBA, and then the last one, maybe the what's it called now? Maybe the insurance arm. So all of these subscriptions, right, is being managed by the management group over here. So, they allow you to manage access, policy, and compliance across multiple subscriptions. Now, once you're able to understand this, then we'll be good to go. Okay, so let's go ahead and create these subnets and create all of this. Does anybody have any question?
Yes, I do. Good evening,
Please go ahead.
everyone. Okay, just with regard to the various groups that you just discussed, the management group, the subscription, resource, and the resource group and the resources. So, like with regard to like an organization, maybe like a banker, you just said, which operate like in terms of the environment, they have their UAT environment, their staging or the DR environment and the production environment. So the resources they have, how would they categorize with regard to the environment? Is it at the resource group level or at the resource level or at the subscription level? Like in instance you gave, we did it with like the holdings. Okay, each section of the bank will make use of this particular subscription. So that's just what I want to understand in terms of the architecture.
Okay, so thank you so much for that very important question. Okay, so for that, right, you may need to set up different resource groups. Do you understand? Different resource groups, because your dev environments, your UAT environments, they are still within an organization. They're not different organizations. So you may need to just set up different resource groups for that. Remember, I told you that resource groups are just logical collections of virtual machines, app services, storage accounts, SQL databases. Of course, the different environments that you have, UAT will have virtual machines, storage accounts, SQL databases, virtual networks. Staging will have the same virtual machine. So, but how do you now group all of those things so that UAT workload does not interfere with the test? UAT does not interfere with, let's say, the staging environment. What you do is just to create a resource group, to be able to group all of these guys together. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, but I want to sorry, I don't know whether this will be, but for instance, now maybe I believe you have experience working in a organization that is fully production based, and maybe there is a communication you want to establish between maybe your production and your DR or your staging environments. So when you have a resource that's specifically for DR and the other one is for production, so how would you tend to maybe an SQL server database is still on a production, one is still on a DR, or maybe Oracle is still on a production and SQL server is still on a DR. I want to establish maybe a link between the two, something like a database link. So how will you architecture to make sure that communication happens? See, they belong in different resource group now.
Okay. So basically, what you're just trying to do is just to isolate. It's still the same thing with this architecture that we have. Do you understand? So let's just assume that this network that we have, right? We have another one somewhere. So let's say that can be 10.2.0.0/24, right? This is production. Right, and then we have another of these guys somewhere, which is at the DR. Of course, they're going to be on different subnets, right? So now, what you can do is for you to be able to achieve replication, or for you to be able to achieve connectivity between those two subnets. That was what I actually talked about. That you will need to, number one, if it's going to be on Azure, you need to do what's called VNet peering. VNet peering is just, you want to peer production subnets. You want to peer it with DR subnets. With that, the different resources can be able to interact with each other. So, for example, let me draw another one here. Just assume that this subnets, this architecture that I have here is here, right? So this is your DMZ. This is your internal LAN. Then this is production. And this is DR. This is DR. Right. Of course, if this guy is 10.0.0/24, right? Let's say 10.0.0.0/24, right? This can be maybe 10.2, or you can give it 10.1, and this can now be 10.0.2.0/ different subnets. Remember that this guy will have his own firewall, and there will be another firewall to differentiate the internal LAN from the DMZ. Over here as well, we'll have the DMZ and the internal LAN. Of course, there'll be another firewall, and there will be the front end firewall. So what does this firewall do? The firewall is just your policeman, that has been configured to look at a routing table somewhere to make sure that, authorized access can come in, between production and DR. So what this means is that, let's say you have a workload over here within the DMZ that needs to be replicated within the DR DMZ. Because these two guys, naturally, are on different subnets. They can never communicate. But if it's going to be on-premise, your network guys would have to do what I call inter-VLAN routing to, route traffic between this network and this network. And once that one has been established, right, this workload here can replicate to your DR. If you have SQL instances, right, they can also replicate to the DR over what we call a low latency network. Low latency network is a high speed connection, so that data are able to replicate online real time. This is on-premise, right? But on the cloud, right, instead of using the inter-VLAN routing, we use what we call VLAN peering. VLAN peering is just, you are telling Azure that, Mr. Azure, please, I want to be able to pair this guy and this guy together because they are brothers and they need to be able to communicate. That is all. So the same thing that has happened on-premise will also happen in the cloud itself. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much. Sorry for the delay.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay, so we'll move on. Where were we? Okay, so we'll move on to okay, so these are the different services. So let us go ahead to create what are we creating first? Now we would have to create the subnet, right? This is 10.0.0./24. So we just type vnet. So this is virtual network. So let's see. Okay, I have a VNet here already. Can we use this VNet? No, let's delete this VNet. Can I delete this? See, let me delete this VNet. Okay, this is 10.0.0/24. Let us see 10.1. See what that gives us. Okay, let's see if this VNet has finished deleting. Okay. So this is, now before I go ahead, okay, this guy is still deleting. Okay, before I go ahead, let me just show you what I talked about subscriptions. So this is a subscription. Remember the definition of subscription, right? Now, I'm just using a student account. So if you're a student, you can actually get $100 worth of compute for 1 year, right? So that was what I actually used because I have so many Azure subscriptions that have actually expired, aside from the one that I'm using on production. So this is a subscription. Then this is resource group. So once you just type that, so this is resource group. Remember, I said the resource group is just a collection of the different resources that you have. Right. So let's go back to VNet. Just want to make sure that gets, okay, cool. So it's gone. Now this is the architecture. Let us create the general VNet. So just come to create a virtual VNet. Okay. So it's telling me the name. So resource group. Let's go ahead to create a resource group. Okay, so just type all services or just come here to create a resource group. So what is happening is that I want to be able to place this virtual network. It's telling me that, Oga, you need to create this guy. I want to be able to have a container, a virtual container, to be able to keep this VNet that you want to create. Right. So what is that virtual container? That virtual container is just the resource group. So let me create a resource group, and I'll call it maybe general VNet class. Let's say general VNet 2. Now, region. It's a lot. Okay, so what is a region? Let me just go back to my sketchpad, because I don't just want to be creating resources and click on Google. Like I need you guys to be able to understand the concept. Now, we've talked about subscription. We've talked about resource group. Now, what is a region? Another common interview questions. Let me clear my board. So a region is a collection of availability zones. Pause. What is availability zone? An availability zone is made up of one or more data centers. So this is an availability zone called AZ. Now, within this availability zone, you have 2 or more data centers. Two or more data centers. So this is availability zone. Let's call it 1. And this is availability zone AZ2. Again, availability zone is made up of 1 or more data centers, right? With independent power, cooling, and networking. Very important. So availability zone, again, is made up of 1 or more data centers. You can see this is a data center. Remember, this is a physical data center, right? With independent power, cooling, and network. So let's say, for example, this data center is in Ikoyi. This data center here is in, let's say, VI. This data center is in, let's say, Lekki. The collection of these data centers, right, are called availability zones, right? Now, Azure region, remember that we're actually coming from region. Azure region is now the collection of availability zones that are connected. Now, there's a connection. That are connected with high-speed network. Now, this link is high-speed network, or what I call a low latency network. So, meaning the link between this availability zone 1 and availability zone 2, right? Like the link must be high speed. High speed. For what? For redundancy. That is what a region is. Am I making sense?
Yes.
Positive.
Good. So once you're able to be able to get this concept.
Right on.
So once you're able to get this concept, right, I don't think you have any issues, because this is a very common interview question where we'll tell you what is the difference between availability zone and region. And then some will say that they're the same thing. No, they're not the same thing. And you have to be able to use your terms carefully. Do you understand? So this is availability zone, and this is another one. And this helps for what? Redundancy. So once they say that I want to deploy my VM in US region, right? Now, once you deploy this VM, it can sit in any of these data centers. If you don't know, any of these data centers, you understand? And that would be able to help. And then Azure offers 99.99% VM uptime SLA, meaning that your VM can never go down. Like your VM can never have any. I think since when I've been working on Azure, right, I don't think I've had instances where my VM like goes down. Now, what is actually happening at the behind the scene is that even if this data center should go down, now remember that within this data center again, there are different racks. And these racks are called, I don't want to go fully into all these terms. They're called update domain and fault domain. So once you deploy your VM is sitting on one of these racks here, right? Let's say by adventure, this rack goes down by this, bam. Once it goes down, this VM will migrate to another rack. This is still within one data center. Even by adventure, let's say this building gets burnt, right? Your VM is still going to be in one of these data centers. Of course, you cannot have a region that will go down. It's not even possible. Even if it goes down, to still be in one of these guys here. Do you understand? That is the kind of redundancy that Azure has. Now, with that understanding, let us go back. You can see it's telling me that I want to create a resource group, right? So before that, I said I wanted to create a resource group. Now it's telling me that the name of the resource group. Remember where we are coming from. This is what we want to create, and we've gone ahead to explain of these terms, right? So I want to create a resource group, which is a container. Tell me that, Oga, which region do you want to create this thing? And I say, okay, what region can I choose now? To be able to choose my region carefully, so that when I'm creating other resources, right, they will all be within that particular region itself. What region can I choose? Okay. Let's say UK. Do we have UK South? South.
We have passed to UK South. Is there?
I passed UK South, Abi.
Yes, just gradually. You say it.
Okay.
Still.
Yeah. UK South. Okay, so good. Let us go to the next. Remember the name. Remember the name of this general VNet. Right. So let's create. So I've created the resource group. Then I can now go back here. Remember that I want to create this subnets. Okay, so I'll go back. It's telling me I should choose a resource group. Remember that this was what we created, general VNet, Abby? General VNet. So I want this subnet to be within general VNet. Then the name of the VNet network, let's say general subnets. Okay, so it's telling me region again. I want everything to be within UK South. Do you understand? So you need to be very mindful of that, because you will not want to create your subnets in, let's say, UK South. Then you're not creating a VM and now pushing it to India North. Do you understand? You need everything to be within the same region. Do you get best practice? Okay. So general subnets UK South. Let's go to next. Now, this is where it now becomes interesting. It's telling me that, Olga, what is the address space? Remember, this is where we are going. So I'll give it 10.0.0.24. Now, what is this telling me? It's telling me that I need to start creating. Let me remove this guy. Subnets. Okay, so it's telling me that what I have, can you see this? I have 256 addresses available. Right? But the visual calculator is telling me that I have what? 254, if you can remember. Let me update this guy. Zero. Sets. You can see 254, but Azure is telling me what I have 256. So Azure would, add 2 addresses for you and later remove it. I will show what I'm trying to say. So after creating this, let us go ahead to start creating our subnets. Let us guys start creating our subnets. What is the first subnet? Let us create the gateway subnet. So I will just click on add subnet here, and then I'll call this gateway subnets. So what is the address range for gateway subnets? This Abi /26. So address range /26. So you can see it's telling me that, bros, I can only give you 59 IP addresses for gateway subnets, and I will use 5. Remember that that's giving you 2 here, and it's collecting it back. So meaning you have only 59 usable IP addresses. But here it's telling me that we have what? Let me see. /26. Let me divide this thing again so that you see. Let me divide this. Divide this. I'm looking for /26 192. This, right? Forget this one that is here. I don't know why it's adding 1 to this 10.1, but it ought to be 10.0. Or sorry, let me reset this thing again. Okay.
Have this /24 itself, 26. Perhaps that's
no.
Okay.
No, let me refresh this thing. Okay, let me paste it again and okay, so 10 updates. Okay, 10. Okay, sorry, /24 updates. Yep. So it has given me what I want. Divide. Yeah. So you can see this is the gateway subnet 10.0.0.192/26. So this is telling me that the usable host is what? 62. 62 minus 2. On a normal day on premise, I will get 60 hosts, because the first and the last IP addresses are being used for network and broadcast. So I can only get 60 IP addresses from this subnet, right? Normally, but on Azure is saying, okay, you can only get 59. Do you understand? So Azure is quite different when it comes to that. Okay, so good. Let us just go ahead. You can forget about network gateway and service. So let us create this. Okay, let us create the other subnets. Application subnets next. So application underscore subnets. So what is the subnet? This it's telling me that you have 11. Is that right? Let us see what this guy is giving me. Slash. Let me divide. Anyways, it's telling me that I shall have 11. Telling me that I have 11 application subnets. Let's go ahead and create it. Okay, let us create the next one. Let us create an OTP subnet. Okay, so add a subnet to call this guy OTP subnets. So put the address range here. It's telling me that I also have 59 as well because they are all under /26. So I add this. Let us create the last one, which is, let's say, API subnets. API subnets. So what is the API subnets? This is what /27. This is telling me I have 27. Not bad. Add it. Okay. So I can add as many as possible. Remember, I've created, this is the general subnet here, right? And then I've created the child subnet as well. So let us go ahead, click on next. Now, this is another very important part. Now, it's telling me that, do you want to make the virtual machines or the resources or the app services that would connect to this a Bastion host? Now, what is a Bastion host? A Bastion host is this. Within this, our internal LAN, right? You would not want this resource that is sitting with this API subnet to be accessed from the internet. Now, Azure is not telling you that, Oga, what I can do for you, best practice is before you move on, let me create a virtual machine for you somewhere within the DMZ, so that if you want to have access to any of these resources, you can have access from that resource to any of these resources within the internal LAN. That is what this Bastion host does. And then by default, once you create any resource on Azure, it's going to automatically assign a public IP, which is very bad practice, right? That is what this Bastion host is doing. Now, if you should hover on it, what is it telling you? It's saying an Azure Bastion service is a fully whatever, that you provision inside your virtual network. It provides secure and seamless RDP connectivity to your virtual machine directly in the Azure, blah, blah, blah. When you connect via Bastion host, your virtual machines do not need public IP address. So once you enable this, you will have a Bastion host. But because of the brevity of this class, we won't be creating that today. Now, it's telling me that if you want to enable DDoS, we all know what DDoS does. It just protects, your resources from attack. But again, this is going to add. Okay, it's telling me that DDoS protection is integrated into Azure platform by default and at no additional cost. So if you want to enable this, you can actually enable this and all. Do you understand? But we just disable this. Then the firewall. Then for firewall, we won't be creating a firewall in this class because firewall is like another class on its own. So we'll just disable all of this and then just do next. Tagging does help you with key value pairs to categorize your resources and all. It doesn't really add any serious technical functionality to what you have. This is just to help you, let's say, for example, you have 50 resources and I want to be able to group all of those resources. Let's say you have VM for finance department, you have VM for marketing department. You can actually tag them here, right? That would just, help you to be able to categorize your resources. So once you click on next, right, to tell you that you should run, that you check whatever you want to check, and then create. Now, before I create, it's very important. You can see something that we have here. It's telling me that you should download a template for automation. Now, on a high level, what I've just done here is not best practice. Creating all of these, clicking next, finish is not best practice because this is too manual. If you want to do this, we would always recommend, because even if I want to do this, I won't create it this way. I would always use Terraform to be able to create this, because let's say, for example, now I create this and peradventure, maybe one of the interns, came in and changed a particular subnet and all. If I don't have backup for what I've done, man, that's all. But with Terraform, right, I can always revert to, I can always use, infrastructure as code, because all these that I've done, if I should download a template for automation, let me just click on this download template for automation to see. All these I've done, just watch, as this has already created a template for me that I can run. You understand? So if I'm very good with what we call ARM templates, right? Azure Resource Manager templates, I can write all of these as code and just slam it. You can see all the API subnet that were created, OTP subnet, application subnet that were created, and this. What I just need to do is just to write this thing and then run it, and it's great. Number one, it's usually faster, and number two, it's you can actually version it. Do you understand? You can actually version it and even put this within your code repository. But the disadvantage for this is that you can't run this on AWS, because this is just local to Azure itself. That is where Terraform comes into play, right? I can write a Terraform script, right, that will create all of this for me on Azure, and I'll write that same script. That same script will also run on AWS. It will run on GCP. So I don't need to, always come and do next finish to be able to create whatever I want to create. Do you grab the concept? And hope you see where Terraform is actually coming into play now. So for those that will be asking, what is the usefulness of Terraform? Terraform will just help you to be able to deploy all of these using scripts. Okay, so I'll close this and then I'll just create. So while this is creating, this will take some time. While this is creating, does anybody have any question? Before we go ahead.
I'm just looking at that ARM template. If we download it, if we can import it to our ID, maybe like Visual Studio Code, and then tag the name as a code, and before we call it as and if you can use this as a script, since you have if we have existing infrastructure, for example, and you are asked to migrate those resources. So I'm looking at it that what's the best way to do it? Look, since this shows us the ARM templates and we can actually develop, can't we use it as a kind of code in Terraform?
Of course, yes. You can't use. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm with you.
So you can't use ARM templates on on Terraform, because really there are two different infrastructure as code platforms. Do you understand? But they actually perform the same thing. They don't use the same. They don't use the same concepts. Now, ARM uses JSON, right? It uses JSON to be able to write its own configuration file, while Terraform uses the .tf concept, when writing its own configuration file. And then Terraform is actually much more simpler and straightforward to learn. But with ARM, right, ARM is much more, not complex though, but once I work in the JSON, you have so many semicolons, so many apostrophes and what have you. And that was why Azure, I just saw that gap, and then they came up with something called Biceps. So Biceps is actually much more simpler. Good. So Biceps is much more simpler than ARM, but man, everybody uses Terraform because Terraform is simple to learn and to deploy, really. But you can actually use any. You can use ARM, you can use Biceps, you can use Terraform.
Okay,
so let's go back. Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My question also is that, for example, if you have an existing infrastructure already and you want to migrate them to Azure, or you have them in Azure, you want to kind of write a Terraform script to convert them to Terraform script, because there are some organizations that ask that, okay, we have this infrastructure, our legacy infrastructure, okay, we want you to automate everything for us. But while doing that, we don't want you to give us a downtime. So how can one use exactly, because he said the manual process should be converted to automation. So they already manual
yeah, okay, so cool, right? Once you create your manual resources manually, you can't convert them back to Terraform. Do you understand? Once you've created them, right? You've created them. Do you get? The only thing you can do is to create all your resources from scratch using infrastructure as code. Because with that, you'll be able to do different versioning on it. So that even if...
Thank you. So my question actually is that, okay, now we have this, how can one resolve that issue? Because, like, for example, this kind of infrastructure that you have, this is an architecture. Now, if you are to work on this, an existing infrastructure, they want you to write all of them, convert them to code. How should one handle that?
Okay, so they want to convert it to code, meaning you want to be able to what will happen is this. Let me not lie to you, right? You have an existing infrastructure like this and you want to convert it to code. You have to write everything again from scratch and then redeploy. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
You've like what I've actually written down here, like what I've actually created here, what I've created here manually, right? I cannot convert it back to code and deploy. What I can do is right from scratch. It is very important that I have the code version. So with that code version, I'm now able to slam it on command prompt, using any IDE I want to connect to my subscription and then run it directly from, let's say, Visual Studio Code. And then it's going to create all of these things that I've done. It's going to create them automatically without any manual thing. But I'm saying that best practice is saying that even if you want to recreate what has been created already, it will be good for you to go back to the drawing board and then start everything again from scratch, right? Convert, like, understand that just like what we have here. Let me see if I can get the templates again. Just like what we have here, right? You are writing all of this from scratch, right? You're writing all of this. But again, you have you have IDs that will help you, to be able to, generate all of these properties, address prefix automatically. Then once you have generated it, what it does need to do is just to copy all of this and then slam it on your ID, because of course your ID is already connected to your subscription, and then just run it automatically. And then this is going to create, and it's even faster to create. Do you understand?
Okay.
So you can't go back from manual and say that you want to, from manual, convert, what you have to scripts. Do you get? And now you can actually run that on
I should
PowerShell.
just download. I can download this, take it to my ID, then use it to do create a fresh one.
Yes and no. Yes and no. What you have here, don't get it twisted. What you have here is just like the script version of what you have running. Do you get? If you want to come up with your own, right, you need to use your ID to be able to, write your scripts. Let me show you what I'm saying. ARM templates. So ARM template resource manager. So now this is an example, right? I've already opened my ID, right? This is an example of how I'm going to create my resources. Right?
Okay.
This is a default. This is the API version. All of this actually comes by default, right? Then the name of your resources, you're saying my storage account. Remember the location that I chose, the region that I chose. The SKU is, since I'm actually creating a storage account, I can give it, the SKU is just like the different sizes, that I have, that I want for this storage account. Then the kind, the storage, and all. Good. So once you copy this, and come to your Azure CLI here, though we're not actually doing infrastructure as code, I have to sign in. During our infrastructure as code class, we are going to show you how to do this. So once I sign in, it's going to sign me into my Azure CLI.
Yes,
or I can come here, This is like another technique. So this is, let's say, bash.
I can't see your screen.
Oh, can anybody see my screen?
No, I thought you were showing your bash screen. You want to show the bash?
Yeah, can you see the bottom file here?
I'm only seeing the Azure, download, add to library, deploy.
I've moved though. Let me reshare.
But I'm seeing it. Oh, it's okay.
I'm seeing it maybe from this.
Maybe it's from your network. But once you watch this video,
I can see now.
Exactly. So so it's telling me that before I'm able to use Azure Cloud Shell, I need to create a storage account. Let me just create the storage account and I'll show you what I'm trying to say. So this might take few minutes. We have actually digressed though, but at least it's good at asking this question. So let's create and see. This is taking time. But the bottom line is, once you copy this like this and then slam it, after a few seconds, just go back to your portal, you see the storage account. Right. So there are different templates. Let me see different that we have. Template spec. See. See the actual ready-made templates. Not using documentation. To show you some other templates that we have. Start templates, good. It's one of you guys. Yeah. So you can see an example here. So if I copy this and go and run it on my cloud share here, you can see I don't want to do that here, but if I copy what I have here, run it, it's going to create this resource group with this name. It's going to create that for me, and I'll be good to go. Just to copy and paste, it's going to create, this resource group that I have here. Do you understand? So that's just the advantage of running this as a code. You get? Okay, so let's go ahead. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I'm okay. Thanks.
Starting. Okay, so what were we even doing? Okay, so we've actually created the subnet. So let us go and see the subnet that we created. No, we created the general VNet 2. So now once you click on the general VNet 2, you would see okay, sorry, this is a resource group. So I'm looking for the VNet that we created. So under the virtual network, so this is the general subnet that we created, and then you see the address space. Oh, sorry, the subnet. So this address space is the general one that we have here. This 10.0/24. This is it here, and then these are the different subnets that we have. So let us now go ahead to create our resources and see where that takes us. So, okay, let's go back to, so let us go ahead to create this. Now, best practice within an organization is saying that you shouldn't create too many virtual machines because, of course, you're going to be incurring costs, for storage, for compute, for public IP addresses and all of that. That is why you would need to create what is it called now? You need to create a platform as a service, right? With platform as a service, because you're going to be deploying an application within this particular server, you don't really need a physical a VM because VM is going to consume so many things. So best practice is saying that within this particular subnet itself, why don't you just create an Azure app service? If you want to deploy a web application, create an Azure app service, right? Or you create an Azure SQL databases here. These are platform as a service resources, right? So you don't need to create VMs all over. Now, going forward, even if you want to do that, best practice is saying that you might not even need an Azure app service. Why don't you deploy all of these as containers? Again, we'll talk about containers in subsequent classes. Why don't you deploy this as a container so that the only thing that's going to live inside here is just the application and its dependencies? That is all. But for the purpose of this class, we'll just go ahead to create a VM. So let's just create the first VM here, a virtual machine. So just click on virtual machines here. Then let us create a virtual machine. So remember, we're creating application subnets. Okay, subscription this resource group. So remember that we've not created the different resource group for this, or have we? So let's all go and create an application resource group, all services resource group. So let's us create a resource group. We're creating what now? Application resource group. application resource group. Region. Remember the region that we chose for that subnet. And it's what? UK South, right?
UK South.
I think it was UK South that we created. Yeah, good.
Yes.
So
UK
let's
South.
just go ahead. Next. Create. Again, you can create a resource group using Terraform, right? You can just specify all of the resource group as a script. Instead of this way that I'm doing it, I'm just creating it one after the other. With Terraform or Bicep or ARM, I can just specify that please create 3 resource groups for me with this name, this, comma, this, comma, this, and it's going to create it. So you can see that is going to be faster. Second resource group, let us call this application subnet 2. Application resource group 2. Let's say application resource group 2. UK South, Abi. UK South. Okay, next. Great. So which other one are we looking for? API subnets. Great. Resource group, API resource group. UK South. Next. Great. Okay, the last one, OTP resource group. You can see the way I'm doing it. That's how I'm going to do it. OTP resource group. You can see just to create this simple next. Great. You can see just to create this simple topology. We spent almost 1 hour, 40 minutes, right? Because first we created a VNet. After getting the VNet, we're now going ahead to create the resource group so that all of these guys will live within the resource group. Okay, does anybody have any question before we go ahead? Okay, all right, let's go. So let us create a VM, this VM that will sit within the application resource group and that will be under what? Application subnets. Okay, so this is it here. Create the virtual machine. The source group.
The network security group.
Yeah. Would see that. We'll come to that.
Okay.
Okay. So what are we creating? We are creating what? Application subnet, Abi? We're creating application VM within what? Application resource group. And see, what's the VM name? Let's say application VM1. Well, it's telling me Linux name cannot contain whatever. Let us remove this. Okay. UK South, you can see region. So always don't always make your life complicated by choosing different region for your. You can see that right from when we started, right? I'm just choosing just a single region because I want to keep everything simple. Availability zone. Remember the gist about availability options. Remember now availability zones and all. So it's telling me that I can select availability zone, virtual scale sets. Very important thing that I just need to note again before we go. There's something we call Azure skill sets. We may not be able to cover this in this class. So there's so many things that just come into my head. Azure skill sets, very important. Now, what do? They are used to run multiple instances of your application. So if you have, let's say, an e-commerce website, right, that you want to host on cloud, you will have millions of requests coming in, millions of users, buying things and all, and you will not want to host that application on just one VM. Do you understand? what you would do is to create what we call an application skill set. Now, an application skill set is something like this. This is the application skill set, right? And then you've now created a rule to say that to say that I want my VMs be running, right? Now, as this VM is running, right, I have my e-commerce website deployed on this tray. And then I have a load balancer in front so that as requests are coming in, right, the traffic is load balanced across. But because I'm running on application skill sets, and I've now set a rule that if this VM here, if the RAM is consuming maybe 80% of the allotted resource or maybe CPU, right? Or if at any particular point in time, any of these guys are consuming resource above a particular threshold, then spin up another VM for me and then move this e-commerce application to it and then load balance it across and then give it an IP. That is what a skill set will do. It's a very powerful concept on Azure that people use. Do you understand? Now, if there's another 80% threshold, it creates another one, moves the application to it, load balance it, and give it an IP address. Three things. It's creating the VM, it's moving the application to this, right? It's assigning an IP, and then load balancing it. Skill set, very, very powerful that you may also need to read on again. So that's Azure skill set. But Kubernetes, this is almost the same thing that Kubernetes does as well. You have what we call a manifest file, right? A manifest file. Within this manifest file, all of these things you are seeing in Kubernetes, right? They are called pods. Pod 1, pod 2, pod 3. Within this manifest file, right? We are saying at every particular point in time, I want my pods to, I want 5 pods to be running the e-commerce application. If for any reason this pod should go down, based on this rule that I have within the manifest file, right? The Kubernetes API will be informed that one pod is down, and then it's going to create another pod for me automatically and then move this application to it. That's the concept. So if you're able to understand this load balance rule, I don't think we have any issue. Okay, so let's go ahead. Okay, so where am I? Availability zone. So you can see virtual machine skill sets. That was what I just explained. Then availability sets. But I don't want to use any this thing itself. I don't want to use any availability option. Security type, standard, image. Let me just spin up a Ubuntu server. Then the size. Please be very careful of the sizes. Always watch out for this amount. Else, you won't know that you've allocated so many. Now, what do we know about the sizes? Let us see all sizes. The question will come, how do I know the size of virtual machine I want to use? The size itself is based on different things, right? If you want to run workloads that are CPU, that do not really need CPU, sources, you can actually use the B series. If you want to run resources that are going to be consuming high memory, right, you want to use the E series. If you want to run, just different workload types that you have here, you can actually choose any. If you want to run one that is, based on storage, you can use non-premium storage because they're saying premium storage is recommended for most workloads and all. So you can just read through based on any workload that you want. So don't just create any VM. At the end of the day, your users will not be complaining that this thing is very slow. That's but I've given this guy 2 gig RAM. It's because you didn't really choose the right VM site. Very important. Do you understand? They say ideal for work that non continuous CPU performance, high memory needs and all. So I just choose a general purpose one for now. And then authentication type, SSH public key. So this is actually the best practice, to log in to your virtual machines by using a public key. You understand? Right. But for now, just keep it simple by using a password. So let me do username for password. Let me just create. This is another common interview question. That what are the different authentication type that you have on when you're logging into an infrastructure as a service resource? So you just say SSH public key and password. Okay, now the person that asked about NSG, this is where energy comes into play. It's telling me that select which virtual machine ports are accessible from the public internet. You can specify more limited or granular. So for now, we only want to allow port 22 to be allowed from the internet. Again, this is the very bad practice. Please don't try this on production, please. This is just for practice sake, right? After now, I'm going to delete this VM. So this is just for practice sake. It's telling me that select inbound port 22. Don't ever expose your workload to the internet. Don't ever give your workload a public IP address if it's within your internal LAN over here, right? Don't do that. Again, remember I told you about the Bastion host. So you can actually use that Bastion host to be able to connect to your workload. But don't ever give these guys public IP address, else you're exposing them to the internet. Okay. So next, DIX, OS type, premium SSD. This one is actually the most expensive because it's premium SSD. I know that SSD is like very fast. That is why you can see best for production and performance sensitive workloads. Then followed by standard SSD. But for us, we're not really doing any serious computation. I'll just choose standard HDD. You can see best for backup, not critical, and it's mostly cheap. Encryption type. Now, encryption at rest. Once you hear encryption at rest, it means they're telling you that once your data is stored on disks, automatically Azure is going to encrypt it for you to avoid vulnerabilities on it itself. So encryption type, right? Very, very important, to be able to choose. You can see encryption at rest with customer managed key. So this is like another level of security for your data that are stored on disks. Okay, let's go there. Now another one, LUN. There are so many things. LUN. If you want to, once you've created, let's say, a storage account somewhere, and you want to attach it to this server, you just attach it here or attach an existing disk. You get, or if you want to create an additional disk, you just create and attach a new disk here, and it's going to create a LUN for you to attach to this server. Let's go. Networking. What do we have here? Now, this is the interesting part. Remember that this is where we're coming from. VNets. So where is the VNets? VNets. Okay. General subnets. Remember, right? Am I making sense, guys? Well, I've lost you guys.
Yes, boss. Yes, boss.
Remember that this is where, remember that we are creating this guy to be within the application subnet.
Yes.
Yeah, so I have to select the application subnets here. Am I making sense?
Yes, boss.
Okay, all right. NIG, so inbound rule and all, load balancer. If you want to load balance this VM here, you can, select application gateway. It's a lot. Azure is wide. I won't even lie to you. So you will need to read more on Azure load balancer application gateway because this is almost 12. So at least you can finish. So let's do next management. This is now Sean talked about this. If you want to, log into that VM with Azure AD, you can select it. But I'll keep it simple. Next, monitoring, enable manage storage accounts. Next, all of these are just tags. Next, and create. So what have we done? Recap. We have been able to, create a subnet. Within that subnet, we create the application subnet, and then we now created that resource to sit within this application subnet, right? So while that is, let us create another one. Let us create one last one because of time. We'll create one last one within the OTP subnet and see if this guy will be able to communicate with this guy. If this workload will be able to communicate with this workload. Now, mind you, once this is done, right, the IP address that is going to give to me is going to be within this.
So the IP is a DKC IP or what? Because we need to specify any static IP for it to pick.
Oops. Hello.
Hello, it seems your line went down.
Oh, sorry. So we'll round up now. We're rounding up soon. So where did I stop? Where did you?
So you're talking about the IP that is going to give to us. So
you're trying to create another VM for OTP in order to know if they can be able to communicate.
Yeah, cool. So let's see. So this
so before that, you were talking about the IP that you give to us.
Yeah. So yeah, cool. So I'm saying that once you finish, right? This I'm sure that this VM that we have, it will assign an IP 10.0.0. Maybe 5 or 6. Why this? Once you create the OTP, it will assign 10.0.0. Maybe 67 or 68. Let us see. I think this one has finished. It's telling me that the deployment is complete. Then let us go to the source.
So since we didn't specify any static IP for that particular VM, now it's going to be like dynamic assign or what?
Yes, you can see what I'm saying. 10.0.0.4 within this subnet. You guys get the gist.
Yeah, it's cool.
Okay, so let's create another. Let's create one last one. I'm so sorry. Time has gone. That's why I told you that Azure, there are so many things. So let us create one last virtual machine, and we'll create this OTP resource group. You can see how I'm actually grouping them. So say OTP server. Region UK South, there will be options, no infrastructure. I'll be fast here because I've talked about this. I want to use the password again, name, password. Okay, inbound rule 22, so that I can be able to premium, standard SSD, encryption at rest, okay, networking. So the virtual network, remember the general subnet, that is this guy here, right? Then the subnet itself, OTP subnet, you can see, that is this guy here, OTP subnet. Okay, so network is really basic, public info allow, those do next, and finish. Create. Great. Okay, so while that is creating, let us go to the resource that we created, virtual machines. Okay, application VM. So if I have my Bastion host, right? What I'll just do is just to log into that Bastion host and then call this local IP using SSH. But because I don't have my Bastion host, right, I will just have to call this via the public IP. So let me log my SSH putty, see this public IP, open, accept. Then I give it the password is okay. So what's the IP? Just to confirm the IP again. You can see the IP here, 10.0.0.4. So the true tests, let us now see as the second one finished. Okay, OTP server. So let us log on to the OTP server. You can see the IP address that it's created. It created 10.0, okay, OTP 10.0.0.68 over here. Right. So let us log on to the server and do the real tests just to ensure that we have been able to properly segment our network. So I'm logging into the server over here. Copy. Sorry. 20.58.18.76. Accepts login as Dapo. So